When a bad day hits you some mornings, you wake up and feel the weight of the world pressing down before you even leave your bed. You open your eyes, and something's already off. A message filled with pressure, an email bearing bad news, or worse, an invisible heaviness that lingers without a name, a quiet kind of sorrow that seems to have no clear cause. I've had days like that, days when everything feels tangled in failure, fatigue, and a cold, indifferent silence from the world around me. They say, don't let a bad day make you feel like you have a bad life. But when you're right in the middle of it, when the fog of negativity wraps itself around your mind, reason often becomes a stranger. That morning, I did something simple but essential. I sat down, opened a weathered copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, not to escape the day, but to remember. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." I read that line 3 times, and then something clicked. What I was feeling wasn't caused by the world being cruel, it was caused by how I was choosing to interpret it today. I'm not here to tell you how to ignore a bad day. I won't offer empty platitudes, catchy mantras, or quick distractions. I'm here to walk with you through the storm step by step, with the ancient guidance of Stoic wisdom. Because at the heart of Stoicism is not cold detachment, it's freedom. Freedom from emotional captivity. Freedom from being a victim of circumstance. Freedom to choose your response, even when everything feels like it's collapsing. To the average person, a bad day is something to run from, but to a Stoic in training, a bad day is a gift, a test of character, a training ground for virtue, a stage where your inner peace, your self-control, and your resilience can rise and reveal themselves. In this video, I'll share with you 3 timeless Stoic techniques, clear, actionable, powerful. Not just theory. Not abstract ideas, but tools practiced by real people who faced wars, exile, betrayal, and loss, and still remained calm, clear, and unshaken. You'll see that a bad day is not your enemy, it's your teacher. The first technique: pause and master the mind before you speak. Before you react, before you let your emotions flood your words, your face, your entire being, pause. This is the first Stoic technique, and perhaps the most difficult to master. The power to pause. In the chaos of a bad day, your instincts beg for action. You want to snap at the person who disrespected you. You want to complain, to curse the traffic, to slam your fist into the desk. You want release. But Stoicism teaches us, freedom is not found in expression, it's found in control. Epictetus said it best: if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Let that sink in. The person who insults you is not the problem. The traffic jam is not the problem. The delay, the rejection, the failure, they're all outside you. What hurts is not the event, but your instant reaction to it. And here is where the pause becomes powerful. Let me tell you a story, one that stayed with me. There's a tale of Cato the Younger, the Roman Stoic senator. He was in the Senate during a time of corruption, political violence, and tyranny. He was often provoked by rivals who mocked him, insulted him, even tried to humiliate him publicly. And what did Cato do? He said nothing. He would pause. He would look at them, and then either respond with calm clarity or not at all. Cato understood what most of us forget. Reacting without thought gives power to the enemy. Responding with control reclaims it. That day I mentioned in part 1, The one where everything felt like it was falling apart. I remember walking out the door and immediately being honked at by an impatient driver. I nearly reacted. I could feel the anger in my chest, but I paused. I took one deep breath, and in that tiny pause, I saw the anger for what it was, a spark, not a fire. It didn't deserve oxygen. That's the practice. When something triggers you, do nothing yet. Pause for just 5 seconds. Take one breath. Let your thoughts rise like bubbles, but don't chase them. Name what you're feeling: anger, embarrassment, fear. Observe it like a cloud drifting by, not a command you must follow, because here's what the Stoics knew, and what modern science confirms. There's a gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap lies our freedom. This first technique, the Stoic pause, is not about becoming passive. It's about creating space. Space between you and the event. Space between you and your lower instincts. And in that space, your higher self can emerge. Imagine this. If every time something bothered you, you paused instead of reacting, different would your day be. No one can steal your peace unless you hand it over. Pausing keeps the door closed, so the next time the world tests you on it will remember Caito, remember Epictetus, and remember that the strongest move you can make is often no move at all. The second technique, shift the frame, rewriting the narrative. Have you ever watched two people face the same problem but respond in completely different ways? One breaks down, the other seems untouched. Same event, different meaning. What made the difference? Perspective, the silent, invisible story each person tells themselves about what is happening. This is the second Stoic technique. Rewriting the narrative, not by lying to yourself, but by choosing to interpret the facts through a lens of strength, rather than weakness. Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, faced betrayals, wars, plague, the death of his children, yet his meditations are filled not with complaints, but with clarity. He wrote, "Choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been." What does that mean? It means reality isn't what happens to you. Reality is how you interpret what happens. Let me tell you a story from my own life. A few years ago, I lost a project I had poured months of work into. It wasn't just a job, it was something I had believed in, something I hoped would change the direction of my career. Overnight, it was cancelled, no warning, no explanation. At first I was devastated. I told myself, this is unfair. This is the worst thing that could have happened. I walked around 4 days like a character in a tragedy. But one morning, I sat down and asked, what if this isn't the worst thing? What if this is the beginning of something better? That simple question didn't change the facts, but it changed me. And from that shift in narrative came new clarity. That failure made space for another path, one I never would have taken if things had gone right. That's the essence of this second Stoic technique. When something bad happens, pause. Technique 1. Then ask, what else could this mean? What can I learn here? How is this helping me grow, even if I can't see it yet? You are not lying to yourself. You are choosing the stronger lens. You are taking control of the frame like an artist painting the background behind a single moment. Seneca once wrote, "A setback is a preparation for a greater leap forward." That's not optimism. That's perspective with purpose. And neuroscience today agrees. Studies show that cognitive reframing, the practice of consciously changing how we interpret events, actually rewires the brain. It reduces anxiety. It strengthens decision. It increases resilience. So here's how you practice this. Name the event. What actually happened? Stick to the facts. Name the story. What are you telling yourself about what happened? Rewrite the story, not to escape it, but to find meaning, growth, and strength. Let's say you got rejected from a job. Old story. I'm not good enough. I failed. New story. This was a redirection, not a rejection. I'm being pushed towards something more aligned. Got criticized publicly. Old story. I'm humiliated. New story. This is my chance to practice humility and self-control under pressure. It may sound small, but this shift of narrative is what separates those who collapse under the weight of life from those who grow stronger beneath it. Stoicism doesn't ask you to pretend life is easy. It teaches you that even when life is hard, you have power. The power to choose meaning. The power to reshape your inner world, even when the outer one refuses to change. So next time something happens that tempts you to say, "Why me?" pause and instead ask, "What for?" Because from that question comes a story only you can write. The third technique, voluntary discomfort training for the storm before it hits most people. Wait until the storm comes to search for shelter. The Stoics, they built the shelter long before the clouds appeared. This is the third technique, voluntary discomfort, deliberately placing yourself in moments of controlled hardship, so that when real adversity arrives, you meet it like an old acquaintance, not a stranger. It sounds harsh. It sounds extreme, but it's not about punishment, it's about preparation. Let me take you back to the Roman Empire, where a man named Seneca lived a life of wealth, status, and power. And yet every month, Seneca would set aside days to live, as if he were poor. He would wear rough clothing, eat the simplest food, sleep on the floor, and ask himself, "Is this what I feared?" He wasn't doing this for show. He was training his mind. He was breaking the illusion of comfort. He was reminding himself that he could endure far more than he thought. This practiced voluntary hardship wasn't unique to Seneca. Epictetus, who was born a slave and later became a philosopher, taught his students to practice cold exposure, fasting, silence, and physical simplicity not as suffering, but as spiritual strength building. The Stoics believed this: if you only train in comfort, you'll collapse in crisis. But if you train in discomfort, you become untouchable when real hardship strikes. Now let's bring this into modern life. What does voluntary discomfort look like today? It could be turning off your phone for a full day and sitting in solitude with your own thoughts. Skipping a meal intentionally to observe how the body and mind react to hunger. Walking in the rain without complaining just to feel nature's presence fully. Waking up before dawn, not because you have to, but because you choose to. Speaking the truth in a room that expects silence. These acts are not grand, but they build inner steel. Each one is a quiet rebellion against the part of us that craves ease, comfort, and the illusion of control. And there's something beautiful in that rebellion, because you're telling the world and yourself, "I can handle it. I've already practiced the pain." This technique saved me more than once. There was a period in my life when I knew a difficult conversation was coming. A confrontation with someone I cared deeply about, but also someone who had betrayed me. Instead of avoiding it, I prepared. For several days I practiced silence, no entertainment, no distractions, just me, my journal, and stillness. And when the conversation came, I didn't explode. I didn't retreat. I responded not from a place of emotion, but from clarity. That clarity came from practicing discomfort voluntarily, so that when real emotional pressure arrived, I didn't crumble. We often think strength is forged in the moment of crisis, but the Stoics knew strength is forged in advance, quietly, consistently. like a soldier sharpening his blade before the battle, not during. So ask yourself, what's one small discomfort you can embrace today? What luxury can you step away from just long enough to remember it's not essential? What fear can you simulate, not to suffer, but to prepare? Because when the bad day comes, and it will, your response won't be panic, it won't be weakness, it will be quiet readiness, the kind of strength that doesn't shout, but holds steady through the storm. Commentary and deeper analysis. The three pillars of inner strength. Now that we've walked through the three techniques: pause, reframe, and voluntary discomfort, let's step back and look again. Not just as tools for handling a bad day, but as something far more profound, the foundation of a Stoic life. You see, Stoicism doesn't offer us shortcuts. It doesn't hand us escape routes from hardship. It gives us structure, something to build within ourselves when everything outside is falling apart. Let's begin with the first pillar, the pause. It's deceptively simple, just a breath, a moment. But within that silence is a revolution, because how often do we react on impulse? How often do we say things we regret, or spiral into thoughts that don't serve us just because we didn't pause? The pause is not weakness, it is mastery over instinct. It says, I am not my anger, I am not my fear, I am the one who observes them. This first step may seem small, but it separates the unconscious life from the conscious one. It reclaims your sovereignty. The second pillar, reframing the narrative. This is the Stoic answer to victimhood, not by denying reality, but by reshaping its meaning. Modern life tells us, you are what happens to you. Stoicism replies, you are how you respond to what happens. When you reframe adversity as fuel, not fire. When you reinterpret a failure as a lesson, not a verdict. You're not being naive, you're being powerful. You're reclaiming the pen from the hands of fate, and you're writing your own story. Because here's a hard truth. If you don't choose the meaning of your suffering, the world will assign one for you, and it likely won't serve you. The third pillar, voluntary discomfort. This is perhaps the most countercultural of all. In a world obsessed with ease, luxury, and comfort, the Stoic chooses simplicity. He chooses effort. He chooses discomfort, not out of self-hate, but out of self-respect. He understands that waiting for life to test you is dangerous. You must test yourself first. Not when the storm hits, but when the sky is still clear. Why? Because if you only act strong when life is easy, your strength is only as deep as your comfort zone. But if you train through hardship, practice restraint, choose simplicity over excess, you are not just preparing for a bad day. You are shaping a resilient identity. Pause. Reframe. Endure voluntarily. Together, these three techniques form more than a mental toolkit. They are the architecture of your inner citadel. They build the fortress within, so that when life rages outside, you remain unmoved. Don't notice something else. These aren't reactive tactics, they are proactive disciplines. Stoicism doesn't wait for the world to be kind. It trains you to be unshaken regardless of the world's mood. It says, don't wish for a lighter burden, train for stronger shoulders. So when you practice these techniques on an ordinary Tuesday, you're not just preparing for a bad Thursday, you're living with depth, with intention, with philosophy in action. And slowly, almost silently, something changes. You stop fearing bad days. You stop resenting discomfort. You stop hoping life will go easy on you. Instead, you become the kind of person who can carry weight without breaking. That, my friend, is power. Not the loud kind, Not the kind that posts and boasts, but the quiet kind, the kind that lasts. Applying Stoicism in modern life, real-world situations, Stoic responses. The beauty of Stoicism is not found in books, it's found in traffic jams, in heated conversations, in lost jobs and sleepless nights. In other words, real life. Theory is meaningless if it doesn't work when your heart is breaking, if it doesn't hold when your inbox fills with rejection, if it doesn't ground you when someone you love says something that cuts deeper than silence. So let's bring Stoicism down from the marble halls of Rome and into the cracked pavement of the present moment. Point 1. You're stuck in traffic. You're late. You're angry. A horn blares behind you. You check the time. You're going to miss the meeting. Again, your chest tightens. Your jaw clenches. In this moment, you have a choice. Option 1. Let the day unravel. Swear. Honk back. Imagine how your boss will react. Suffer twice. Once from the traffic, and again from your story about it. Option 2. Pause. Take one breath. Feel your hands on the wheel. Say quietly to yourself, the situation is outside of my control, but my response is not. This is technique 1 in action now. Reframe it. This is my training ground, an opportunity to practice calm in chaos. That's technique 2, and maybe next week you choose to leave 30 minutes earlier. You embrace the discomfort of waking earlier, just to reduce unnecessary stress. That's technique 3. Simple, stoic, strong. 2. You receive unexpected criticism from someone close. Maybe it's a friend, a partner, a colleague. They say something harsh and suddenly your blood turns hot. You feel misunderstood, attacked, deflated. Your old self would fire back. Oh yeah, and what about you? But you remember, words don't define you. Your reaction does. So you pause. You say nothing. Not because you're weak, but because you're choosing your power. You reflect. Is there truth here I can learn from? Or is this just someone projecting their own struggle? You reframe. This isn't personal. This is a test of my equanimity. And later that night, instead of venting, you journal. You turn the pain into reflection. You're uncomfortable but voluntarily so. Because you know growth comes dressed as discomfort. This is Stoicism alive in you. 3. You're facing uncertainty, career, health, finances. Your contract ends, your savings dip, your future fogs, fear whispers, you're losing control. But the Stoic sees clearly. You never had control, you only had influence. And now it's time to focus on that influence again so you don't spiral. You breathe. You list what is within your grasp. You control your effort, your focus, your routine. And you remind yourself, like Epictetus said, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. So instead of waiting for the fear to pass, you walk into it, you write the resume, you call the person, you take the risk, because voluntary discomfort doesn't just prepare you for hard times, it pulls you through them. For you're overwhelmed. Much to do, not enough time. Everyone needs you. Deadlines loom. You haven't had a moment of silence in days. The temptation is to grind harder, to prove your worth through exhaustion. But the Stoic says, busyness is not purpose. So you pause. You ask, what's essential? What's noise? You cut the non-essentials. You focus on the task in front of you, not the mountain. Just the next step. You remind yourself of Marcus Aurelius' words. Do less. Do it better. Do it with purpose. And when fatigue comes, you don't fight it. You accept it. You rest, not as a retreat, but as part of the rhythm of discipline. 5. Someone betrays you. deeply, unforgivably, perhaps the deepest test of all. Trust broken, loyalty shattered. The old you would become bitter, would carry the wound for years. But now, you pause. You grieve, but with dignity. You remember that Stoicism never promised immunity from pain, only mastery over how you carry it. You say, they wronged me. That is their burden. My response will be my strength. You forgive not to release them, but to release yourself. And with time, you reframe even this, not as a loss, but a sharpening, not as betrayal, but as a reminder to stay grounded. In your own values, you embrace the loneliness, the sadness, not as weakness, but as voluntary exposure to the reality of life, and you walk forward not unscathed, but unbroken. In each of these situations, we see the same pattern: pause, to stop the chain reaction of impulse; reframe, to shift suffering into strength; voluntary discomfort, to train before the world tests you. These aren't just techniques, they're a way of life, one that works in traffic, in tragedy, and in triumph. They don't make you superhuman, they remind you that you are already equipped with what you need: clarity, courage, control, not over the world, but over yourself. And that's enough. That's Stoicism, not as an idea, but as action. How to build these practices into daily life, turning philosophy into a way of living in it. One thing to know: Stoicism. It's another thing to live it. In moments of crisis, we might remember a Stoic quote. We might take a deep breath, pause, reframe, endure. But the real power of Stoicism isn't just in crisis response, it's in building a way of life, a quiet, stable, unshakable rhythm. A daily practice that prepares you, shapes you, and keeps you grounded, no matter what life brings. So, let's answer the real question. How do you make these three techniques not just moments, but habits? How do you make them part of who you are? Let's break it down. 1. Build the pause into your day. The pause is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows with repetition. Don't wait for anger or anxiety to practice it. Build it into your daily rituals. Start with your mornings. Set small reminders through the day. A sticky note that says, pause. A phone alarm labeled step back. Even a deep breath before you speak in any meeting or conversation. Make the pause your default, not your emergency button. And over time, you'll notice you don't explode as quickly, you don't spiral as easily, because your reflex has become reflection. 2. Reframe with intention. Journal, reflect, repeat. Reframing is an art, and like all arts, it requires daily practice. The best tool, journaling. No, not long essays or perfect prose. Just this simple format. Every night, what happened today that challenged me? What story did I tell myself about it? How can I reframe that story into strength? You'll be surprised. An annoying coworker becomes your training ground for patience. A cancelled plan becomes a moment for rest and redirection. A hard conversation becomes a mirror, revealing your inner growth edge. This is more than reflection. This is mental reprogramming. Each night, you're rewriting the neural pathways of your mind. You're choosing strength over bitterness. Perspective over pain. And slowly, this rewiring becomes automatic. You start seeing challenges as invitations, not attacks. You start owning your story. 3. Practice voluntary discomfort. Design your training ground. Here's the truth. Comfort kills resilience. Not all at once, but slowly, silently. To keep your edge, you must create your own adversity. Tiny storms, chosen ones. Here's how. Physical, take cold showers. Walk when you'd rather drive. Skip a meal once a week. Wake up 30 minutes earlier than needed just to own the morning. Emotional. Have the hard conversation. Ask for feedback. Speak your truth. Kindly but firmly. Sit in silence with discomfort instead of distracting yourself. Mental fast from entertainment. Spend one day a week without music, without scrolling, just you and your thoughts. Don't wait for life to hit you hard. Train under your own terms. Seneca fasted not because he was poor, but to remember he could survive being poor. That is wisdom, that is strength. Choose discomfort, and you'll be ready when discomfort chooses you. 4. Create a Stoic daily ritual, your foundation now. Let's bring it all together. What does a Stoic day look like? Here's a template adjusted to your life. Morning 5 to 10 minutes. Sit in silence. Breathe. Just observe. Read one Stoic passage, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. Ask yourself, what challenge might come today, and how will I meet it? This is premeditatio malorum, the Stoic practice of imagining adversity before it happens, so you can greet it calmly. Midday, 2 minutes. Pause, reflect, check in with yourself. Ask, am I reacting or responding? This recenters your day. Evening, 10 minutes. Journal the 3 questions. What challenged me? How did I respond? What will I do differently next time? Reread a Stoic line that resonates. Once a week, choose one act of voluntary discomfort. Reflect on it. What did it teach you? How did it shape you? This is not a religion, not a rigid system. This is a discipline, one you build with consistency. And like all disciplines, it becomes identity. 5. Track growth by who you're becoming, not what you're achieving. Modern life measures success in numbers, views, followers, income, tasks completed. The Stoic measures success by virtue, by character, by how you respond under pressure, by how deeply you live your values when no one's watching. Ask yourself, am I calmer than I was last year? Do I speak with more clarity? Less reactivity? Am I more grounded when plans fall apart? Am I less driven by fear and more led by reason? If the answer is yes, even slightly, then you're walking the path. And when a bad day comes again, and it will, you won't panic, because you won't be improvising. You'll be relying on a system, a lifestyle, a foundation. One built not in a moment, but over many small intentional days. This is the quiet revolution of Stoicism. Not changing the world, but changing your relationship to the world. Not escaping life, but engaging it with courage, composure, and calm. Conclusion: a Stoic mind for every kind of day. We began this journey by talking about a bad day. One of those days when everything seems to press against you, when people disappoint you, when circumstances betray you, when your own mind becomes your worst enemy. But here, at the end, perhaps we've uncovered something more. That Stoicism isn't just about bad days, it's about building a mindset strong enough for any day, because life won't always give us warning signs. Pain doesn't schedule an appointment, and moments of peace and clarity can disappear without a sound. That's why we prepare. That's why we train. Not because we expect the worst, but because we refuse to be broken by it. Marcus Aurelius never wished for an easy reign. He didn't ask the gods to protect him from pain. He asked for the strength to meet it with honor, and in his darkest nights he wrote by candlelight, "Have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the core of Stoicism, not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it, not the avoidance of struggle, but the calm, navigation through it. Not numbness, but clarity. When you pause before reacting, when you reframe hardship as a teacher, when you train in discomfort so you can thrive in uncertainty, you are not escaping life. You are meeting it on your terms. You are showing up to the battlefield of each day with inner armor, quiet confidence, a mind that doesn't shatter at the first sign of storm. Because here's the truth: you will lose things, people will leave, plans will collapse, and the world will not always reward your efforts, but your mind, your reasoned, grounded, practiced mind can remain intact, and that is a kind of victory no one can take from you. So when the next bad day comes, and it will, you won't crumble, you won't rage, you won't drown, you'll breathe, you'll respond, you'll endure, not because you're pretending everything's okay, but because you've built yourself to be okay, regardless of everything. That's the Stoic way. Not cold, not detached, but deeply present, anchored, steady, awake. And from that kind of mind flows a different kind of life. Not reactive, but intentional. Not anxious, but aligned. Not fragile, but free. Thank you for walking this path with me today. If you found value in this journey, share it with someone who might be facing their own storm, because wisdom, true wisdom, isn't meant to be hoarded. It's meant to be passed down, like a torch. Lit quietly, carried bravely. In the dark. Until next time, live simply, think deeply. Stand tall, walk calmly. And above all, stay grounded. This is Stoic Penglai, and you're stronger than you think.